Interoception is the sense of internal body sensations, such as hunger, thirst, and heart rate. Join occupational therapist Lisa Fedorchuk as she shares how understanding the body is key to understanding behaviors. Stay tuned. It's time for Key Talks.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Key Talks. Key Talks is our podcast project by Key Creative. And if you haven't heard about us yet, we are based in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. We are a pediatric rehab practice for youth of all ages, all abilities. We don't just serve Edmonton, we serve many, many towns across rural Alberta. If you're listening to this from a homestead somewhere outside, like White Court, New Norway, just give us a call and we'll see if we can reach you. And if you want to know more about us while you're listening or watching along, please go to our website, keycreative.com. That's QIcreative.com to find out more. Today's guest is actually a recurring guest of ours, occupational therapist and Key Creative coach Lisa Fedorchuk. Lisa's past episode with us was about awesome books for all abilities. And when I say awesome books, these aren't just like clinical textbooks. These can also be some of the more casual stuff you can pick up at the library right now. And we talked about all sorts of stuff for that episode, where it was like anything from more clinically subjects to stuff that might be like explaining death and dying or setting boundaries and other little things like that that maybe parents and caregivers need a little bit more help to teach or just to have around the house to learn. And there's just so much you can learn by just cracking open a book and just focusing on one page. Just because you didn't read a book from start to finish doesn't mean that you didn't do good at book. There's so many different ways
or
to do it.
get something from the book.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. So I encourage you, when you got more time, to go back to our archive of episodes and check that one out. But today's episode is going to be on a subject called interoception. I will let Lisa come here and introduce that to us. So Lisa, come on out.
Da-da!
Mike, where are your jazz hands?
I had it on my lap
Okay.
there, for that one.
Adapt it for your needs. Go for it. Yes.
All right. So
Welcome.
Thank you.
yeah, welcome, Lisa. We've got a lot of stuff here that I'm sure we'll dig into very soon, but interoception. So my understanding is that like all of us at school as kids learn about 5 senses, like sight and smell and taste and touch and hearing, but there's actually 2 other sneaky senses. And
There's
this is
3
one.
more.
Three
Dun, dun,
sneaky
dun.
senses. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
so there are 3 more. And today we're going to be talking about that 8th one, which is called interoception. And these, do you want to know what the other 3 are? Okay, yeah. So the other 3 are much more internal senses. So one is proprioception, which is kind of awareness of where your body is in space. And then the vestibular sense. So that's the one that if you're on a roller coaster at the amusement park, spinning around, things like that. That's vestibular. So, yeah.
I'm like, how could I forget proprioception?
No, not proprioception. And then the 8th sense is interoception. And I think it's getting more and more talked about, which is amazing because it really does cover almost every skill and life activity that we do. Interoception is essentially being able to pick up and interpret our internal body signals.
Okay,
So-
what are internal body signals?
Yeah, so think skin in. Everything.
Skin in.
Skin in. So that's everything from, okay, your stomach is grumbling or it's feeling tight. Maybe that means you're feeling hungry, or maybe that means you're feeling nervous. Internal sensations could be when you know you have to go to the bathroom or not, right? Your bladder being full. That can be heart racing. That can be brain feeling foggy. That could be cheeks feeling wet because you were just crying. All of that is our internal body signals that get sent to our brain. And then it's up to our brain to have to figure out what to do with that information.
Nice. I appreciate that it's not just hunger and thirst and bladder, that it's also like I'm about to present for my school project and my tummy's not feeling right.
100%.
So-
And I think that's where, like, I use interoception a lot when working on regulation skills, whether co-regulation, self-regulation. I think it kind of really is that missing piece if we're trying to build on emotional literacy and social emotional learning and just how to be our best selves. How do you know you can't do the regulation piece, do an action to help yourself feel more regulated, feel more calm, if you don't even recognize that you're feeling a certain emotion, or that it's uncomfortable for you and that you want to do something about it. So I think that's really important that we can work on that foundation.
Well, and there's probably also like those situations where it's, people can confuse because of what they've been told of like, hey, this feels like, stomach pain. Maybe it's hunger, but maybe it's not. It could be nervousness and whatnot. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's such a great example. Like hunger, nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm probably jumping in a little quick with this story possibly, but it's so relevant to what you just said, Mike, is my little son, Braulio, often when he's feeling uncomfortable or nervous, he says, Mommy, I have to go pee or I have to go poo. And we now realize he's really just feeling uncomfortable in the space and how he's feeling because maybe he's done a trick and we've been like, oh, Braulio, that's so cool. Or someone said, Braulio, don't do that. And then he'll be like, Mommy, I have to go poo or I have to go pee. So now I've started explaining, and I mean, you can probably speak to that more, but I've found that very interesting to start to just speak of like, okay, well, maybe you're feeling something else like nervousness, right? And it's okay to feel that way. Yeah.
And I love that you
Interesting.
use the word maybe because the important piece with this is we never want to assume anyone's experiences.
Yeah.
Because like we said at the beginning, it's internal, right? For the most part. Even when something seems to be more explicit or obvious, like let's say a kid smoked their head at the playground, but then they're not reacting because maybe the signals that they get for pain and that sensation just is smaller than someone else's. So if we jump in and react, oh my God, are you okay? Then they're going to react more emotionally or from that like behavioral standpoint of like, well, mom's freaking out, so I should freak out, right?
Yeah.
Like those mirror neurons are saying, you should freak out right now. But maybe their inner experience is, oh, that was a surprise, but I'm okay.
I really appreciate you saying that. Something I've tried to do more as a parent, and probably because of the work I do, and I'm around people like you who have so much of this important knowledge, is like when my child gets hurt, I'm more trying to now mirror them and like react sort of how they're reacting. So they're not following my cue, but I can learn more about what it is for them. And then the question I tend to ask is, forget where I heard this from, but are you hurt or did it scare you? Right? So that because sometimes it's not that they're hurt, it's just that they were scared.
Yeah.
But I loved that question. And now I often will use that question.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And really like with a lot of this stuff, like really kind of not injecting our own hypotheses in it because like we want to promote emotional literacy, interoception literacy for the kiddo because like, a whole other situation. I was totally reminded by what you said about Braulio and the bathroom and stuff like that. Cause like, if we go to like trauma and safe spaces, literally my first drawing for a safe space exercise that Paula did with our staff was me mixing a lagoon, which was part of a childhood memory where from my aunt and uncles, they had a little kind of like island vacation cabin and stuff like that. And there was a lagoon beside it and I always felt safe there. But then my secondary thing was because of some trauma that I experienced within schools, my safe space was always the bathroom. And so like for me, where I could kind of go and escape from that area of a traumatizing experience, there was that. So many of the things like when I do feel kind of in that overwhelmed thing, I'll do that. It's not about it's because that's where I feel safe. And like, but that's not necessarily about those interoception things. But if we lead with those hypotheses, it doesn't lead us to being more literate about our own kind of elements, and really following the kids' lead for that is so important so that they do develop that literacy for themselves.
And I think a really powerful way to do that is just being non-judgmental and focusing on just like commenting and labeling, right? So as much as you can observe, or giving these little snippets of vocabulary that maybe they can start to build on to see if that does resonate with them,
Can
right?
you give us some, give us some
absolutely.
examples of what that would look like?
So maybe you know your kid when they have to go pee, starts to do like the little wiggle. Maybe they sit on their foot and is trying to squeeze their legs together and doesn't want to go to the bathroom. Maybe they're playing a game or something like that. If you go up and say, hey, you have to pee, there's a chance they may just shut down. You're like, I don't know, I'm busy. No, I don't have to. No. Instead, leading with commentary of saying, oh, I see your legs are squeezing together. Oh, I see your body wiggling. I wonder what your body's trying to tell you. Just leave it at that. Walk away. Let them connect the dots. It's going to be so much more powerful. There's going to be so much more autonomy. And they're building that vocabulary and the awareness to be, oh yeah, what is my body doing? What does my body need? What do I actively want to do about it?
Oh, I love that one. Do you have any others like that? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but I love that. And to just, as a parent, just take the time to consciously like be able to ask those questions is so empowering for our little people. Like I just think of Lena and Braulio, and if I given them the space to like think and actually realize for themselves what's going on would be such a powerful thing for little people. And like we know, like people want to feel like they're in control and like they have the answer. And by doing that as a parent, we're giving them that opportunity, which is so great, right?
Yeah. I'll give an example. So we work with wide variety of kids at Key Creative, fair number of autistic kids. And autistic kids and otherwise, some people just have a lot more oral sensory seeking needs, right? So a lot of people have heard of chewies or chulery, that sort of thing, right? So sometimes kids are trying to explore things with their mouths, or they just need a lot more sensory input there. And sometimes it's with less safe items, right? So something, maybe they're chewing on paper and there's a swallowing risk, et cetera. So let's say they're chewing on paper, sometimes just labeling like, oh, like your mouth your mouth wants to move, right? Oh, looks like your mouth needs a job. And then you can maybe present some chulery or a water bottle with a silicone spout that's nice to chew. Be like, okay, oh, here's some options if your mouth needs a job. So you're helping to give that third piece of the action option by labeling. Bring interoceptive
If your
awareness.
mouth needs a job. I love that so much.
I saw you just lit up there, Deanna. She said that was like a for you.
Like
totally right.
I grew up watching my dad chew the crap out of his ballpoint pens at work all the time. Like we would go to Staples and get like the big 50-pack of Bics. Because he would just shred through those caps like nothing else.
His mouth needed a job. Amazing.
And, chewing on that type of thing isn't good for the teeth. So if we can find them a tool that, is more
like medical grade silicone and not consumer pen plastic.
And then to go with the same sort of example further, it's like, okay, well, why does my mouth want to move? Is it just because it needs to move? And is it because it's regulating just for baseline? Like, just like sometimes people might like wiggle their foot, right? Like it's a stim to help regulate ourselves. Or is it because, I do that once I start to get like really anxious? So being able to differentiate, am I seeking that out because it just helps me at my baseline, or because something is amping up inside and my body is seeking out more? Right? So being able to know that that's a bigger cue may mean, hey, we need to layer in some more strategies, do more about it. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. I'm wondering again if you have an example, because what I'm hearing is the question is like, is there like I'm chewing the pen? Is it just because I'm chewing the pen, or is there something more going on that needs to be addressed,
Yeah.
sort of thing. Do you
And
have
isn't that an internal experience, right?
Yeah.
And which is so hard because we just see the outside.
Mhm.
So here, I'll give kind of an example related to, so sometimes we hear parents or teachers say, oh, this kiddo goes from 0 to 100. It came out of nowhere, right? They just started crying or so dysregulated or just had such a tough time and it came out of nowhere. That always makes me wonder, okay, maybe they're just getting a lot smaller of signals. So generally, our interoception signals are either, they can be like just right size, they might be too small, they could be too big, therefore overwhelming, or they could be distorted or kind of jumbled, right? So hard to make sense
And
of.
signals being what's happening in our body, something telling us that something's feeling
Something's
uncomfortable
off.
or okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
uncomfortable. And that comfortable versus uncomfortable feeling is a great
Okay.
categorization. So think like when you're sick, right? And you're like, just something feels just off. That's more an example of that jumbled or distorted signal. You're like, I can't pinpoint it. I just feel off. But if you can pinpoint, oh, I have a headache. Maybe if you have chronic headaches, chronic migraines, maybe that signal's like even bigger because your body's on high alert. So jumping back to that 0 to 100, that could be an example where why we need to start working on recognizing the cues sooner so that they have a chance to recognize the cues earlier on, because they might be getting some signals, but they're just missing it because they don't know that maybe they're just tinier.
That it is a signal
Or that it's a
for
signal that means
of
something,
dysregulation coming on.
yeah, to them. Maybe that is
Okay.
just a small biting of the lip for them. That means it's starting to go up.
With that, are there any like of the kind of like sensations like with interoception that are more common to be the ones that are more those kind of leveled higher level signals for indicating for persons, or like, because I know there's probably ones that are a little bit more rare, but like especially for like a family who might be starting out, are there any ones that like, you know, this is a good common one to like maybe start with?
Okay, so awesome questions. I hear kind of two questions. The first one is like, is there one that's more likely to be bigger than others? Great question. I don't know the answer.
Common. Is there a
common?
more common?
I could see like
bodily reaction?
skin
Yeah.
and like that sensation. So let's say clothing sensitivity isn't uncommon for neurodivergent folk. And so maybe that would be one that might tend to be bigger. An example of one that maybe might be smaller is that sensation to like temperature, right? So we've all kind of met a kid that's like, I don't need my jacket because, and maybe they truly are running at a higher body temperature and don't need their
a
jacket,
jacket.
right?
Yeah.
And then with the jumbled, actually, no, I'll jump to the second question, which was, which ones do you start with? So yes, there are some recommended ones to start with. Also, definitely, I haven't done this yet. Shout out to Kelly Mahler. She's an OT out of the States that is absolutely at the forefront of interoception. She's done incredible research, works with autistic advocates, and really does a really, really great job.
And this is one of her.
So this is her curriculum. So makes it really accessible for teachers, clinicians, families could purchase this too. Also has a lot of great webinars, which is fantastic, on different topics such as interoception and toileting, interoception and Gestalt language processing, big wide variety. So it really goes through a step-by-step framework and tangible experiments and activities and visuals and resources along with it, which is incredible. And what she's recommended is we always want to start with more of those external body parts that are easier to see and experience sensations with. So hands is the first one to start with, because then you can do something. And I brought my little handy dandy bin of goodies.
Yay, goodies.
So here's an example here.
Can I ask
I
just
know
a
these.
quick question?
Yes.
And maybe it's not quick, but I have these too. What would be the difference between the sensation of touch then versus interoception, or are they blended together? Ooh.
That's a great question, and my brain is a question mark.
Because and maybe it's just that there's just some overlap, right? Or in a way, but interoception. Can you just define it? Like, give the definition, your definition of interoception?
My definition is being able to recognize and interpret body signals.
Okay.
Specifically internal body
so
signals.
So that makes it's recognizing the internal body signals.
Yeah.
Whereas like the sensation of touch, you're just
like if you have
really
the ability
more,
to touch something or not.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Question
yeah.
mark.
Yeah.
Well,
Great question.
Well, with touch, that's kind of more your relation with the world around you, whereas interoception's more your relation with the
yourself.
world within you.
And how it feels on the inside.
Yeah. Because
Okay.
the signals go to your brain, and then your brain is trying to figure out what does this mean? And then the third step is kind of like, well, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to do something about it? Yeah.
Interesting.
Great question.
Cool. Okay.
All right. Oh, and the thingy that I
cool.
passed out.
If you like
pass
it,
it to
then you
Mike.
better put a ring on it.
It's the little, like, the spiky
Less
ring
than 15 seconds.
fidget. Mike, I passed you the spiky ring fidget if you want to. So something like this, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to elicit or create a sensation on your hand or your fingers. For us as adults, it's going to be a lot easier for me to ask, how does that feel? Okay. Yep, move it up and down your finger. How does that feel on your hand? How does that feel on your finger? And you would say?
Well, it actually feels quite nice, like a finger massage, and I'm getting some good like pressure.
Okay. Yeah. So feels nice. So
Yeah.
probably feels kind of like a comfortable sensation.
Yeah.
You said pressure.
I like it,
Would
especially
tight
as
feel
I'm
like
kind of going
inaccurate?
back and forth,
Yeah. Okay.
up and down.
Yeah. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, it's like that like kind of like deep squeeze.
Yeah.
Kind of feeling with it. Like there's also that what comes to mind is, like those octopus head massagers.
Yeah.
It kind of it's like a mini one for your finger.
Totally.
Because like
Oh,
was
yeah.
playing with something with your finger, you'd never really think of that sensation. Cause like, I always find with those, you're like, oh, kind of like that over the top. And like, especially with hand fidgets, you fidget with your hands all the time. But this one, because of kind of almost that level of like pressure that's somewhat foreign from like an actual touch, that it allows for kind of like that more overwhelming kind of sensation.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And overwhelming for you, right? For
Yeah,
someone else,
someone
they
else
might
might
say,
be-
it doesn't really feel like much. It
there's
feels like a
totally-
light tickle, right?
Yeah.
So for me being able to ask you guys, you have more of a word repertoire, you can pull out those words. For some of our kids, they don't have those words to just pull out of thin air, even with something more direct, like, okay, use this object. What do you feel? So there's a couple kind of like steps. The first step is just the commenting, right? So commenting and labeling, especially when it's obvious. So if you know that it's going to be kind of tight around their finger, you could plant that seed like, oh, maybe that feels tight. Maybe that feels pokey. The next step would be asking a question with giving some options. So saying like, oh, does it feel tight or loose? And then we might figure out, this kiddo doesn't have the words tight and loose in their vocabulary, right? So giving options, and then you can open it up from there. We also love visuals. So here's an example of what Kelly Mahler calls I think descriptor menu. I sometimes call it a word menu. So my hands can feel, and it has a little icon, cold, warm, tight, loose, wet, dry, messy, clean, and give some options. And what I'll also do is this might be too
Want to hit.
that's
good.
And this might be too many
Especially
icons.
for little
Yeah.
people.
Yep. This might be too many for some. So you might start with a shorter option. You might do just hot, cold, smooth, bumpy. And then maybe you're holding an ice cube, right? Oh,
Yeah.
I wonder, does that feel hot or cold in your hand? Right? Maybe you're touching a tactile, like the book with that has like the bumps, right? Do you like the textured
those
bumps? Be like, oh, this crocodile feels smooth. Maybe it's a smooth crocodile on the page, flipping over, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, this porcupine, he feels pokey.
That's
So
a
you're
good
starting to
start.
plant
Because
those
if I was really little and you gave me that, I might be like, oh, what
Like, what is it? Is this a quiz?
a little decision paralysis here,
Yeah.
maybe, if I don't know
Yeah.
all of these words yet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we really want to grade it based on the learner for what their needs are. Yeah. I forget what the original question was, but that was a nice tangent.
Well, you were giving us an example of one of the interoception ways that we feel through our body.
Starting
and
with our
one
hands.
was through touch.
Yes.
What are some of the other common interoceptive ways that our body gives us signals? I guess, like, I'm noticing there's this wheel on this book, and it points out some of them. Are these the common ones? Are these the only ones? Are there more than these?
So
Like,
we have the signals. It's all throughout our body,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But chances are it's harder for us to pick up on a signal from our liver versus
yes,
right?
yeah,
And hence why even focusing on hands is so much easier than something like bladder,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So let's say we're working on toileting with a kiddo, and parents are saying like, yeah, they don't seem to know that they have to go pee, right? It's not like they're trying to hide. It doesn't seem to be an awareness. And so if we try to start building their vocabulary, just jumping to how your bladder feels, it might be too tricky. So we would start with hands-on experiments of like, oh yeah, using this little vibrator or the lotion or ice cube or a heat pack to start to build up, okay, what are different ways my hands can feel? What are different ways my feet can feel? And then we move into, let's learn about the body. What are the body parts inside of our body? Shout out to Carly, who is a OT colleague of mine who loaned me, it's a plush internal body organs kind of apron toy. So that could be something you could, then the next step would be, hey, you have something called your bladder. That's what holds all your pee.
Yeah.
Or I've done, you trace their body with chalk outside on the sidewalk, and then you get to draw some blue chalk that they drank some water and it goes down right into their bladder, or maybe the jumbo paper and you get to trace their body and put on little felt body parts, and you can learn from there and then target eliciting what a bladder sensations could be.
Yeah. And I feel like I have a couple questions, but just on that, in line with that, like, again, I'm thinking of Braulio, and he has a common one that he'll start to get cranky when he's tired, but he currently is not connecting or wants to acknowledge that he's tired. So you tell me. So so here's Braulio. He's getting cranky. I know it's because he's tired.
Yeah.
And so I'm, typically we're like, you're tired. Like,
I'm not.
I'm not. So I do always think like, I know I need to like be exploring this more, and I need to be helping him understand the cues that his body's giving him to tell him that he's tired. So if that was presented, like, how would you go about exploring that with your child?
Two main thoughts.
Okay.
One, and I know you already know this, working on something while the child is regulated
Yes.
as opposed to dysregulated is always going to be easier.
Good reminder.
Chances
though,
are,
right? Yeah.
sounds like he's probably pretty dysregulated, as any of us would be when we're tired. So I would definitely focus on talking about our body signals, like outside. Be like, oh, different people, like everyone has body signals, right? Different people feel tired in different ways. Oh, mommy feels tired when my eyes feel heavy. Oh, my eyelids are droopy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my body feels floppy, and just show that exaggerated cues and label that in real life too. Maybe you're curled up on the couch and you're starting to get sleepy.
Or you're starting to flop you're starting to flop down. Like
Then
that
you
might be a signal
yeah.
that you're feeling.
And labeling it in yourself, because then it takes the pressure
Take
off
it-
of
put it
that
on
you're going to be placing an expectation on him.
On him. Or that there's something wrong.
Or there's something that
'cause-
you're going to ask him to do something next.
Yeah.
Just starting, go slow is always, I love like crock pot style, go slow, let it marinate, let it cook slowly, because you're going to get more sustainable change that way. So start by planting those seeds, talking about the different people have different signals. For you, it feels like this. And then maybe dad gets to model and label what it feels like for him. Maybe you do a little brainstorm art craft, right? With both your kids. Like, oh, how do you know How does your body tell you that you're sleepy? Maybe they have their own ideas. Maybe they draw just big, the letter Z repeatedly because that's what they see in a book, right?
Yeah.
And again, always you just want to honor what they share, even if it feels inaccurate. You can always say, "Oh, tell me more." Right? What does that mean? Then you can dig deeper. Because everyone is different. Like I had a teen client once that said he knew that he was frustrated versus mad. The place he felt it in his body was his spine. He said he felt it in different places in his spine when he was frustrated versus mad.
Oh.
Cool.
Yeah.
If I were to say, no, that's not how you feel mad, would he be able to?
Yeah. Does that help him in any way?
Does that help him? No. Right?
Yeah.
So jumping back with Braulio, labeling in yourself, and then labeling in those moments too, right? Eventually with him.
So now let's say that, so now I've done that. You've done an activity when he's regulated. I've done this is what happens with mommy.
Plant the seeds. Maybe it's a week. Maybe it's 2
happens
weeks.
with you. And then let's say it now is happening for him. Like he's starting to flop on the couch.
Yeah. Then I would, again, go slow. Try not to reach that, like the tipping point, but like, oh, Braulio, I see your body's floppy. Pause.
Okay.
Let him process.
Yeah.
Right?
Would you say at that point, and I know I'm wanting to jump already, but at that, I know, so I'll stop there, but would you also say, could that mean something? Or would you wait to say, you would say?
It depends on the kid. Okay. If it's a kid that has a really big drive for autonomy, then just let the pause happen. You could say your follow-up thought in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You could
still hold a space for them to,
microwave some popcorn, come back and be like, oh yeah, your body seems really floppy. I wonder what that means.
Yeah.
And then
just let there be space for him to process.
And then if you feel like he's receptive to it and is starting to connect the dots, be like, I wonder if that means your body is, you give choices, hungry or sleepy.
Yeah.
Right? Or angry or sleepy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not angry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, what do you think we should do next?
Yeah.
Right? Putting the ball in his court.
And I think what I'm also hearing is it doesn't all have to happen all at once. It's as parents, we sort of want to get things figured out and move on very quickly. Whereas this may be a planting seed over a few days or weeks where we find the opportunity that finally I've planted that seed of saying I noticed that your body's wiggly. And then maybe the next time it's, I notice your body's wiggly and I notice he's a little bit more calm and aware. Could it be that you're hungry or tired?
Yeah. And be prepared for him to say, he could say hungry. Yeah. And be like, okay, I'm not hungry, mama.
Well, I just see this as being one of those things that really feeds that independent spirit for them because they do get to figure it out on their own terms because probably the thing that you've experienced is where there is that pushback when you try to define the narrative too much for them. Right?
Oh yeah.
That's,
totally.
That's what's running in my head right now is all the ways that parents and caregivers may undermine interoception.
Or disempower our children.
You can't leave until you've had 2 more bites.
Good intentions.
With good intentions, right? They're like, this is my role to teach my child skills and about the world, and they are tired. So, hey, you're tired. You have to go to bed. Why don't you get that
when I'm telling you you're tired? You're tired.
And it's hard because that means it means a loss of power for you as the parent, right? But for the benefit of them learning these skills long term. Did we learn about this growing up? Chances are not much, not explicitly. So it's,
So
useful.
we've kind of said why it's important, but why is it so important? Why has it become such a big part of your practice and your work with your clients?
I think just because it spreads across all skills, all areas of need. Everything from being able to dress appropriately for the weather, anxiety, trauma, emotions, toileting, executive functioning and focusing in school, all of that, it touches across everything. And I find building interoceptive awareness really gets to like underneath the iceberg, right? And it really empowers the individual.
And can I just clarify, like what you mean by that is like, for example, I'll just pull out anxiety and trauma, for example. They are so much things that are happening within there's so much happening within our body as a result, right? Of a trauma or with anxiety. So understanding those bodily cues and signals helps us then come up with ways to regulate them or manage them or
to cope. Yeah.
Okay,
and
cope.
to maybe recognize it sooner.
Yeah.
So you can feel like you can do more sooner, right? As opposed to it feeling that 0 to 100 creeping up and then it feels too late and you're just in a crisis. Yeah.
It's creating that awareness, right? First so that you can then be conscious of it.
Proactive plan versus just
Totally.
reactive.
Totally.
Yeah.
And also interoceptive differences. So not having those just right signal sizes, right? Having them be too big, too small, jumbled, is very common with different mental health diagnoses, OCD, ADHD, autism. Like it runs the whole gamut. So it's like, okay, brains are just trying to figure out how to brain, and if we can help them along instead of just saying, no, you're not mad. Like that doesn't help. So helping that individual to figure out their own body.
Okay, so we pulled up one of, I know my favorite books, In My Heart.
Yes.
And I'm curious how you use this book in your work with interoception.
Yeah. So there's a number of books that have sensation vocabulary and tied into bodily functions. So hunger, thirst, bathroom, or emotions. Automatically, that's interoception. So In My Heart, you'll notice there's some pages that say, but other times my heart is cool. My heart feels lazy and slow, as quiet as snowfall. This is when my heart is calm. So it's giving vocabulary to describe maybe when you're feeling calm, what your heart is doing, right? So, and maybe if we were to do a hands-on experiment to explore sensation words for our heart, it might be we're going to run on the spot for 1 minute. And then put our hand on our chest and feel that, right? Maybe we do some deep breathing or progressive muscle relaxation and put our hand on our heart. Or maybe you have a heart rate watch, right? To do that. Like, hey, how does my body change and what's the cues that my heart is sending me with different situations, right? So with the kid, if their heart rate gets high during gym class, but they also experience anxiety, maybe they can start to learn how to differentiate that fast heart rate in gym class. And it's okay and we can be safe versus they're feeling very unsafe when it comes to anxious situations. Yeah.
But yes, I love that. It's like, because sometimes when your heart is racing, that doesn't have to mean it's a scary thing that we need to hide and be afraid of. Sometimes it means we're having a lot of fun and we're playing, and that's why our heart rate. The other thing you did there is what Deanna was talking about, is that with a book, you don't always have to read the whole thing. You just took one page and created an activity to be aware of things, and then a conversation and a whole bunch of stuff with one page.
I love books.
That.
Another book that is very directly interoception focused is called Listening to My Body by Gabby Garcia. And this is definitely a book, I think we maybe talked about it in the other episode, taking different chunks, because it will have at the bottom in blue font, like actual activities to do. Yeah. So it's saying sometimes my heart feels like a gentle tap. Sometimes it feels like a pounding drum. Let's practice. Place your hand on your heart. Right? And just very directly talking about, hey, we have body signals, right? If a parent doesn't know how to introduce this topic on the fly, then having a book like that can be really helpful.
And so the cue cards, you showed us the one with the hands. I'd just be curious, like there you have eyes, heart. And again, these cards are giving you vocabulary of different ways your mouth might feel or different ways your eyes might feel.
Yeah.
Okay. Very
and
neat.
These can be great because sometimes for the adult, they're like, I don't know. I don't know what vocabulary, right? I don't know words. So this can kind of give an idea, like what are different ways your eyes can feel?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Focused, distracted, tight, loose, wet, dry, itchy, wide, heavy, crying, sore, too much.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's helpful.
And I've had clients like make their own, draw out their own little icons.
Yeah.
Or find pictures off the internet. There are one kind of thing to note with these is usually more direct pictures is better as opposed to abstract. So for example,
Okay.
and sometimes you can find some of these kind of online too. There was one I tried out with a kiddo, I think he was kindergarten, and there was a bunch of different pictures, like a campfire to represent hot. There was an elephant, right, to represent heavy. And his brain took that very literal, right?
Oh,
so then
yeah.
he'd be like, oh yeah, my hands feel hot because I went camping and we were by the campfire and it was hot. Or, oh, elephants are in the zoo, right? And then we're totally, I don't want to say missing the mark, but
Yeah.
we're not being directed towards what we're hoping to
Yes.
build up.
You're
Right?
kind of
Yeah.
you're more engaging, almost like creativity play in like the interpretation of what those symbols are, rather than kind of like
Yeah.
that direct,
Like functionally
feeling.
addressing your needs.
Yeah.
We're just having pretend.
We're layering
play
in something
that's
else
not-
that's creating more of a barrier. But yeah, so individualizing for the learner, you can draw out your own pictures easily. You can,
One resource I really love going to is the Noun Project, because they have so many like really simple kind of iconography like ones where you can find one that hopefully is meaningful on that like level for kiddos, and they're all free. So if anyone's wanting to do something like this of their own.
nice. And I think Kelly Mahler also has a number of resources
That's
on
awesome.
her
Yeah.
website for free as well. So yeah, it's really fun. Like you can explore this in daily life, in everything. It doesn't have to be a structured activity. You don't even have to have the pictures. You could be baking chocolate chip cookies and like, oh, my hand feels tight holding the wooden spoon, right? And you're maybe kneading it with your hands or rolling it. Like, oh, this feels a little sticky. Oh, is this wet or dry? As you're cracking the eggs, right? Touching with your finger. You can, bath time, here or there, you can build that vocabulary.
Yeah,
everywhere.
there's so many opportunities. I have a friend who is very good at this, and she just has incorporated it so naturally with her children. And I notice she'll often say like, "How's your body feeling? Like, what's your body feeling? You know, what's it telling you right now?" And I always hear her say that. I'm like, "Oh, good reminder to like just check in, because our body is telling us so many things." And I just love being able to give children the words and understanding that our bodies are telling us things and there's a reason. And once we know that, we can make choices that usually are better for us, right? Or that lead us in the direction that we actually want to go, right?
Yeah, like it sometimes it feels so futile when like he doesn't make the right choices, right? Or like when he gets mad, he does X, Y, Z. And okay, yeah, that's the action part. Like, does he even recognize the signal, let alone know what the signal means to him?
Yeah.
Let alone know what to do about it, let alone do the thing, right? So
Yeah.
it really takes us back to the start of setting our kids up for success. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love that. Cool.
Go interoception.
Anything else like you would want to share about interoception that we haven't shared or talked about
I
that's
think-
coming to mind? Or
Yeah, mainly that it benefits everyone. It benefits us as adults to be more in tune. Parents, teachers, therapists, all across the board. It has a place for, and know that it's a skill for you to be able to work on, and it's going to be uncomfortable for you. You're going to stumble on your words. You're going to freeze up knowing, oh, your body looks, right? Like that's okay.
Yeah. Where's
It
my
will
cue
get
card?
easier. It will get easier. And your kids will really reap the benefits.
You just reminded me of some of my friends where like editing key talks, for example, is a lot of time at the computer. And I might have a friend or two who are also doing their own thing. Like we like to do, a Skype call as body doubling. But what I'm trying to get to is sometimes they're really locked in doing the computer work, and then a friend goes, posture check or hydration check. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then, you know what I mean, Mike, right?
It sounds like you're like streaming live on Twitch or something like that.
Almost, yeah, almost. But then you just, oh yeah. Then we just take a sip of our
Right?
water bottle and keep going. And
Instead of like just sitting with the discomfort, and then our body gets tight, and then we're like, you know, creating ailments and illness because we're not being aware of like these things that what our body actually needs. I have an example. My eye the other day was at night, like it was about 5 a.m. and it just started twitching, and it would not stop twitching, and it pretty much twitched the whole day. And I was like, oh, okay, what is my body telling me? And I had the awareness enough and knowledge to have that question, which I'm grateful for. And one of the things that came up that aligned for me was electrolyte deficiency. I've been doing a lot more working out and expending a lot more energy. And so when I read that, I'm like, my body needs more electrolytes. Like I'm putting so much out, I need to put more back in. The other thing that came out that can be common is just fatigue. So it was just a reminder that I need to make sure I'm resting, right? Like I need to make sure I'm getting enough sleep so that I'm able to show up and my body's not like falling apart on me, right? So it was that little signal, man. Was it annoying?
And I'll ask you a question. Was it easier because the signal was very localized as opposed to if your whole body just feels like, quote,
Yes.
off? Was that easier
to address? Because I would tend to just like be like, I'm fine. I'll just move on. Like if it's a subtle thing.
Yeah.
Or just like a bit, like you're saying, but because it was so localized and like it wasn't painful, but it was just annoying that I'm like, I need to get rid of this.
And I think that shows the power of why we want to focus on different body parts or give choices, right? Like two contrasting vocabulary choices, like, oh, does that feel hot or cold, right? Filling up the bathwater. Instead of just, oh, how does your body feel?
Yeah.
That overall question, maybe us as adults, we can answer that, but we're not setting our kids up for success for asking them that, right? So breaking it down is so valuable, and it clearly was a lot easier for you to try to troubleshoot.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting.
Cool.
Are there any situations, I know you mentioned with the one kiddo who was kind of injecting a little bit more kind of creative storytelling play kind of in that. Are there any other things that you would caution in terms of with families who might be working with this? I know we already also talked about like not over defining things for kids, but any other areas that you want to lend your expertise to, areas to avoid in kind of engaging the subject?
Yeah, I think it's just an overall theme of be open, right? And assume that what they're sharing is their experience, and not getting stuck in what the right answer is supposed to be, right? So like, how do you know if you're thirsty? Oh, my mouth is dry. But maybe for someone else, it might be a headache. Maybe for someone else, it might be, I don't know, goosebumps. Who knows, right? And also just exploring it in different ways, right? Maybe you could have a little body outline and you're just using different colors to scribble in the area of the sensation instead of even having a word for it. So I don't really have an answer for you as of other cautions, but just how to lean into what works for them.
And I think what I hear you saying though, with what you're saying though too, Lisa, is like being patient and playful, right?
Yeah.
And not biting off too much, that it is a process.
Yes.
And I feel like a message I want to share with our families and people and community is like, it all takes time, right?
Yeah.
And it's valuable time because instead of scaring our children or shaming our children or guilting our children into regulation, we're empowering our children to feel confident and secure and certain in who they are and understanding themselves. And that starts by understanding the inside out,
Absolutely.
right? And so I love that.
Yeah, like the contrast, sometimes you'll
powerful.
hear the term fear-based compliance, like the because I told you so, because I'm the adult. Let's say, again, with bedtime, right? Maybe that works short term. Maybe you can get your way through it. But then when Brawley was a preteen and a teenager, like what if you took the time and I know there's like no time left in the day, right? So that's what is great, that you can sprinkle this throughout your daily life, right? It doesn't have to be, we're sitting down and we're doing half an hour of interoception, right? Like it's not that. No. It's your regular daily routines. And then if you could play that long game and he's building those skills internally, then when he gets to a teenager and he's wanting to stay up all night playing video games, but he can really clue into, how is it impacting my body the next day? How does my body feel right now? What do I need to do about it? Is that comfortable, uncomfortable, et cetera? How will this impact me? That's going to take him a lot further in life than just say, go to bed.
Because I said so. Yeah, and I know for me, like one of the first things I'm going to do is when I see Braulio getting into that floppy stage is, I noticed that you're feeling a little bit floppy. And I'm just going to let him
just marinate.
Let's stew.
But I think, and just knowing that it today can be enough, right? Even just one question or creating awareness in a way that I haven't before can be the next step in helping
That is
him.
change. Like that is change, right?
That
Even
is
the change isn't him saying yes, skipping off to his room happily.
Yeah.
The change is you, and you are already doing that. So.
Yeah. It's worth celebrating.
Woohoo.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank
you. Yes. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I loved this conversation. I loved learning more. I have tools that I'm going to be bringing home today. Possibly.
Let me know tomorrow how bedtime goes. Awesome. Well,
So
thank you
that
for
was
having
great.
me.
You're
Pleasure.
You're welcome. Okay, so do we do our final whoosh it out?
Let's whoosh it out,
Let's
everybody.
whoosh it out.
All right.
1, 2, 3.
Whoosh.
Hey, thank you.
Spirit fingers.
See you next time, everyone.
Key Talks is a project of Key Creative. Our co-hosts are Paula Audrey Rivero and Deanna Halls. Our production team is Michael Schwake, Jessa Dupuis, and Deanna Halls. Music by John Rivero. To reach out to us or access services for you or your family, visit keycreative.com. That's QICreative.com and fill out our online intake form. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.